All right, you have a 16-year-old son, 10th grade, has an IEP. It's not being followed by general education teachers and SPED teachers. What can you do? And you live in Alabama, all right? Now, look, I'm going to talk about your dispute resolution options. I'm also going to talk about, the things that you can do going back to your IEP team. But let me go ahead and preface it with this. We frequently see issues, and I'm talking about my firm, to where, an elementary school IEP, it tends to go smooth to a point, but then when you make that transition to middle school, then all of a sudden there's this mental block or hang up of the people that teach on a middle school level and then the high school level, depending on the nature of your child's disability and needs, to where it's like the school of hard knocks. Well, we're not going to baby anymore, we're not going to provide you the accommodations. And there's so many general educators out of pure ignorance that, number one, don't have buy-in, not interested in whether a child has an IEP or not. And there's this putrid attitude, and it's not with everybody, but it is there, to where, they shouldn't be in my class. If they're having these kind of issues, they should be in special education all the time. But once they get to my level in high school, and put up or shut up. The real life out there isn't going to sit there and accommodate you and give you extra time and all this other stuff. And that's just the attitude. The other thing is that when you have your IEP meeting, you only have one general education representative at your meeting. Frequently, it tends to be the PE teacher pulling the short straw, showing up to your IEP meeting. But see, your child's in high school and has multiple teachers. And some of them have never been to your child's IEP meeting, have never been part of the discussion and part of the solutions. And many times, many of the general education teachers are just sitting there like a bump on a log anyway. And they're not participatory in this process, and there's no buy-in. And they just don't feel like they have a role to play when it comes to a child's IEP, and that is absolutely not true. The entire focus of an IEP is to help a child reach a point to where they no longer qualify for services. And if they no longer qualify for services under an IEP, because the schools are mandated on a minimum of every 3 years of evaluating your child to see if they are still eligible for an IEP. So the entire goal is to work and help the child to the point where they no longer qualify for an IEP. Now, isn't that all general education? The entire focus is to have them not require an IEP, which means that they would be in general education all the time. But they can't get there without the buy-in, support, and the involvement of the general educators. They are a mandated member of the team. But this is a mental problem going back to our colleges, because we sit there and we track our educators in two different spots. And, special education's over here, general education's over here, and, I don't want to deal with special education students, but most of the special education students that are out there are the ones that have learning disabilities, that have speech language impairments. Those are the majority, overwhelming majority of special education students. Not autism, not Down syndrome, not emotional disability. Those are not the majority. The overwhelming majority are learning disabilities. And that's reading and math. And some ADHD, that's in there too. All right? So a lot of that stuff requires accommodations. Some reteaching, some collaboration with the resource teacher or special education teacher. But that's where we have a lot of the problems, is the lack of buy-in. And, in Alabama, they're supposed to, there's a form out there, and every teacher is supposed to fill out this form. And it's the people that have responsibilities in educating your son. And the form at the top, it's persons responsible for IEP implementation. And then there's a disclaimer on there, that I have received a copy and I have read this child's IEP. I would ask whether or not they have that form, and if you could have a copy of it. Because a lot of the times, a lot of these people don't even know your child has an IEP, or haven't read your child's IEP, has no idea what they need to do with your child's IEP. That's the first place I would look. And then the second one is, I don't know who your special education teacher is, but they're likely overwhelmed, or they don't care. But you didn't go into a lot of detail with regards to how it's not being followed, because I don't know, I don't know the nature of your child's disability. I don't know the severity. I don't know the level of need, so I'm sort of answering off the cuff. Now, what can you do? Now, what I did was I gave you some advice to sit there and go back to the team and just sort of pinpoint whether or not what I said was accurate. That there's just not buy-in. That some of these people don't know or don't care. That's how you sort of smoke them out, is you ask for that form. All right? Where your child is having the issues, I would ask that general education teacher be invited to your next IEP meeting. Okay, that way you can try to prime the pump for a little bit of excitement and zhuzh, with regards to implementing your child's program. Now, none of that works. You can always call us and let me know where you live, and we might be able to provide you some greater insight, knowing which school district you're in, or handle it ourselves. But we're an option, and that would be part of your dispute resolution option, is to get a specialized attorney involved. You can ask for mediation. You can ask for a facilitated IEP meeting, where the state provides either a mediator free of charge or a trained IEP facilitator, somebody, a neutral party coming in that's been trained to help guide the IEP team through these kind of disputes. Okay, you could file a state complaint, and that's directly with the State Department of Education, that these things are not being followed. State Department of Education would conduct an investigation, but all they do is send your letter over to the school and say, hey, she's complaining about you guys. Can you sit there and respond to her complaints? So I can't really say that I put a lot of faith in the state complaint process. At least that's typically how it's done. So if it's done differently now, I would be shocked. And then the last one is filing something with the Office of Civil Rights. Okay? Those are all of your options if you can't work through this issue. Okay? But I don't have a problem, if you reach out to us, you can send me a private message, or you can call our office, and I don't have a problem, getting into a deeper discussion with you about this. And maybe through that deeper discussion, you can sit there and answer a lot of those questions as to what's not going right. And then I might be able to come up with some very simple solutions to get it fixed. Okay?